Name's Buck Rawlins, and if you'd asked me 3 weeks ago what I expected from life, I'd have told you dust, debt, and dying alone. That was the shape of my days. The ranch was half-starved, my horse had a limp in his front leg, and the roof leaked every time the sky spit. Clara, my wife, passed 3 winters back from the lung fever, and I hadn't spoken more than 10 words to another soul in over a month. So when I heard a thump from the hayloft that morning, I figured it was a coyote nosing around, or maybe a loose board giving up the ghost. I took my rifle, more out of habit than threat, and stepped into the barn, careful not to startle the mule. The smell of old straw and saddle oil met me like it always did, familiar and tired. But then I heard it again, softer this time, a shuffle like someone trying not to be heard. "Who's there?" I called, voice flat but not unkind. Nothing. I climbed the ladder slow, boots creaking, rifle cradled but low. When I reached the top, I saw movement in the corner behind the hay bales. 2 small figures crouched together like wild things. Girls, barely more than 6 years old, maybe 7. They were filthy, faces streaked with dirt, one wearing a coat 3 sizes too big, the other wrapped in a frayed quilt. Eyes wide like they expected me to shoot. I lowered the rifle. "Well now," I said, softer than before. "Ain't what I was expecting." They didn't speak, just stared, arms locked around each other. The taller one blinked, real slow, and something in that look stuck under my ribs. Not fear, not quite, just waiting, like she already knew how the world worked and didn't expect much good from it. "You two got names?" I asked. Silence. "You hungry?" That got a flicker, a twitch of the mouth from the smaller one. I backed down the ladder, left the barn door cracked, and returned with a pan of leftover beans and cornbread. Set on a crate just inside the door. Then I sat on the porch and waited. Took 20 minutes, maybe more. But eventually, I heard soft feet on the packed dirt. They didn't speak, just ate like they hadn't in days. I kept my eyes forward, watching the sunrise crawl up over the buttes. When the plate was clean, they vanished back into the barn without a word. I left it alone that day. Let him have the loft. Figured they'd be gone by morning. But they weren't. Next night, I caught them sneaking into the chicken coop, probably trying to get eggs. I brought them bread and water, and this time I sat across from them in the dirt, not close, not far. "I ain't gonna turn you in," I said, "but I can't help you if you won't speak." The older one finally raised her eyes. "We're not posed to talk to men." "Fair enough," I said. "You want to tell me your name instead?" A long pause. Then, almost grudging, "Josie." The little one leaned close and whispered something. Josie nodded. "This here's June. We're sisters." Figure that. She eyed me like she didn't trust the calm in my voice. I didn't blame her. "Where's your folks?" Josie's lips pressed tight. June turned her face into her sister's shoulder. "Ain't no one left," Josie said finally. "We had a mama. But he—" She stopped, shook her head. "He'll find us if we talk." That was enough to know trouble wasn't far behind them. I didn't push. That night, I gave up my bed, rolled out a blanket by the stove, and left the door open. They didn't come in, not that night. But I noticed the next morning the pan of biscuits I left on the windowsill was gone, and the water bucket had been dipped clean. It went like that for a spell. Quiet. Careful. After 5 days, they started helping out. June swept the porch with a 2-big broom. Josie fed the chickens, gentle as rain. They spoke more, asked cautious questions. "You always live alone?" Josie asked one evening. "Not always." She looked at the picture on the mantel, me and Clara, back when the world felt full of time. She was pretty. She was better than I deserved. Josie nodded solemn, like she knew what that meant. One night, there was a storm, real thunder and crack kind, and the girls bolted into the house like scared cats. I let them crawl into the bed I hadn't slept in since Clara died. They shivered in silence, eyes wide, until finally Josie whispered. "He said we was property. Said Mama signed the paper." I didn't say anything, just stared at the fire. I didn't know what paper she meant or who this he was, but I knew cruelty when I heard it. I waited until they were asleep, then stepped outside. The wind had died down, but the sky was still restless. I lit a smoke and leaned against the post. I didn't have much. Couldn't offer a future or fine clothes. but I could give them a roof and a warm stove and a place no man would take them from without bleeding. That was the night I made up my mind. I didn't know the shape of their secret, but I knew I'd take it on, whatever it was. They didn't ask for me, didn't trust me yet, but they found my barn, and maybe that meant something. I looked out at the hills, dark and still. Somewhere out, there was a man who wanted them back, and I was beginning to hope he'd come looking. The girls stayed. I didn't ask them to, didn't make rules or promises, but they settled in like wind settling dust, quiet, steady, without ceremony. Josie took to carrying the egg basket like she was born to it. June followed the old hound around, talking to him in whispers and tying a red ribbon around his neck like he was some knight from a storybook. He didn't mind. Their silence had started to thaw, but only a little. Questions came slow, and answers slower. I never pushed. A man learns, after enough time alone, how to wait for things to come on their own. One morning, Josie brought me a splintered piece of driftwood she'd found by the creek. "Looks like a bird," she said. It didn't. Not really, but I nodded and thanked her like it was carved marble. She smiled, proud and shy all at once, and I realized that was the first time I'd seen real light in her eyes. Later that day, while June napped curled up on the porch swing, Josie helped me mend the fence down by the south pasture. She worked with the focus of someone trying to earn her keep, but she was too small to do much more than hand me nails. I let her anyway. "I had a pony once," she said out of nowhere. Mama named her Clover. She was gray with a white nose. "What happened to her?" I asked, hammering in a loose board. "She got took. Like everything else." I didn't ask by who. I already had my guesses. That night, I pulled out a cracked tin box from under the floorboards. Inside was a photograph of Clara and me, a few yellowed letters, and an old locket. I set the locket on the table where they could see it, hoping it might spark something. Sure enough, Josie reached for it the next morning like it had called her. "Where'd you get this?" she asked. "Belonged to Clara, my wife." Josie turned it over, her fingers careful. "It looks like Mama's. Only hers had an H on the back." My breath caught. An H. Yeah, HK. I saw it once when she let me hold it. Said it was the only thing her mama left her. I kept my voice steady. "What was your mama's name, Josie?" "Hattie. Hattie Keating." It hit me like a fist to the chest. I known a Hattie Keating once. Long time ago. She'd come through town the year Clara and I lost our first baby. Bright smile, sharp wit. She didn't stay long. Just passing through with a man twice her age who called himself a land broker. I hadn't thought of her in years. She ever mentioned where she was from? I asked. Josie shook her head. Just said we have a home one day. Then one night, she told us to run. Said if anything happened to her, we had to find a man named Buck Rawlins. She said he'd help. My hands went still. She looked at me like she was trying to read something behind my eyes. "That's you, ain't it?" I nodded once. "That's me." Josie's face didn't change, but her voice came out smaller. "Then why didn't you come get us?" "I didn't know," I said. I didn't know she was in trouble. The room felt colder then, even with the fire going. Josie looked down at the locket like it could answer questions I couldn't. "I ain't your kin," I said. But I reckon she knew what she was doing, sending you here. Later that evening, while the girls were brushing the mule and humming some tune only they seemed to know, I sat on the porch with a whiskey I hadn't touched in months. It tasted bitter, not the good kind. Hattie Keating had died trying to protect her girls, and somehow she trusted me to finish what she started. It made my chest ache in a way I couldn't put words to. I wasn't the man folks leaned on. I'd barely held my own life together after Clara passed. But those two girls were looking at me like I was a lifeline, and I couldn't bear the thought of letting them down. The next morning, I saddled up and rode into town. Kept my head low and my mouth shut, just like always. But at the post office, I asked a few soft questions about land deeds and guardianship papers. The clerk, old Jessup, squinted at me through his smudged spectacles. "You ain't one to poke into other folks' business, Buck." "I ain't," I said, "but I got reason now." He scratched his chin. "You looking into the Keating case?" I didn't answer. He leaned close. Man named Kellum came through not long ago. Claimed he was next of kin. Said he had guardianship over two girls. Said their mama died accidental, but it didn't sit right with me. Fella gave me the creeps. Wade Kellum. I remember the name. He was the one Hattie traveled with back then. the land broker. I'd heard whispers about him over the years. Shady dealings, land schemes, disappearing wives. I thanked Jessup and left, gut twisting with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Fear. Not for me, for the girls. When I returned to the ranch, I found them huddled by the fire, reading aloud from one of Clara's old books. June saw my face first. What's wrong? I sat down slow, pulled off my hat. Man might come looking. Says he's got claim over you two. Josie's jaw tightened. He's not our kin. I know. June reached for my hand. Are we safe here? I looked between them, at the little bits of hope they'd started to carry, at the threadbare ribbon in June's hair, the scab on Josie's elbow, at the home we'd all built without meaning to. You are now, I said, and I meant it. 3 days later, he showed. I was chopping firewood near the corral when I saw the dust trail winding down the ridge, too fast for a peddler, too steady for a drifter. I didn't stop working, just leaned on the axe and watched the shape grow. One man, black horse, lean frame, and a long duster. He rode like someone who thought the world owed him land and wouldn't mind taking it with force. Josie and June were inside, helping peel apples for a pie they'd insisted on baking for Clara's birthday. They didn't know he was coming. Not yet. I didn't plan to let him get close enough to speak their names. The man dismounted slow, deliberate, like he expected a greeting. You Buck Rawlins? He asked, voice smooth as creek ice. Who's asking? He smiled, cold and polite. Name's Wade Kellum. I reckon we share some business. I doubt that. He looked past me, toward the house. I believe you've got something that belongs to me. That was the wrong thing to say. I stepped between him and the porch, hands at my sides, near enough my holster but not itching. You can leave now, or we'll have a different sort of conversation. Now hold on. He raised both hands like he meant no harm. Ain't no need for fuss. I've got the legal papers in my saddlebag. Full guardianship. Their mother signed him herself. Before or after she died, his mouth twitched. See, I've heard enough about you to know Hattie didn't go peacefully, I said, voice low. And if you think a piece of paper is going to let you put hands on those girls again, you're worse off in the head than I thought. He took a step closer. You interfering with the law, Rawlins? I'm interfering with a man who calls children property. He narrowed his eyes. You ain't blood. No, I said, but they chose me. That counts for more. We stood there in the dirt, sun beating down like judgment. I saw it in his eyes then. That calculating look of a man weighing how much trouble he was willing to stir. His gaze slid past me again, toward the sound of June laughing through the open window. That was his mistake. I stepped forward, voice flat and sure. Turn your horse and ride out. If I see you again, it won't be words we trade. Kellum studied me, jaw tight. Then he gave that same ice-water smile. You'll regret this. Not likely. He mounted up slow, like he had time to burn, and tipped his hat with mock courtesy. Then he rode off, spitting dust behind him. I didn't move until the ridge swallowed him. Inside, the girls knew something had changed. Josie stood by the table, apple in hand, face tight as wire. Was that him? It was. She didn't cry, didn't speak, just nodded once, like she'd known all along it would come to this. June, quieter but watching, stepped to my side. Is he gone? For now, I said, but he'll be back, probably with more than a saddlebag and a smile. Josie crossed her arms. We should run. No, I said. You already ran. Time to stand. They were silent a while. Then Josie spoke again, voice barely above a whisper. Mama, try to fight him. She said the law wouldn't protect us, but she still tried. She said if she didn't make it, we had to find you. I sat down at the table, let the weight of her words settle between us. She believed in you, Josie said. I'm starting to believe in me too, I said, and that brought the ghost of a smile to her mouth. That night I sat by the fire, rifle across my lap, lamp turned low. The wind outside had a different sound, nervous, unsettled. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I made my peace with dying long ago. But the thought of them being dragged away again, screaming, begging, I died twice before I let that happen. The next morning, I rode into town again, this time to the sheriff. Clayton Boone was no friend of mine, but he wasn't crooked either. He listened with a pinched brow while I laid it out. Kellum's claims, the girl's story, Hattie's death. You got any proof? He asked finally. Just their word and mine. Boone leaned back, chewing a toothpick. Won't hold in court, Buck. You know that. I ain't asking for court. I'm asking for a little time. If he comes back, you be ready to stop it from turning bloody. Boone sighed. Don't make me clean up a mess you could have avoided. I looked him square. Then do your job before I have to do mine. He didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. When I rode home, the girls were waiting at the gate, eyes searching the horizon like they were learning to live between hope and fear. You talked to the law? Josie asked. I did. What did he say? I dismounted, brushing dust from my coat. He said it might not be enough. June slipped her hand into mine. Then what do we do? I looked down at her, at the sky turning amber behind the hills. We prepare. Josie nodded. We're not afraid. I didn't tell her I was. Because I was. But I also knew this much. If Wade Kellum came back with a paper in one hand and a pistol in the other, he'd find more than an old rancher standing in his way. He'd find a home, and he'd have to tear it apart with both hands to take it from us. Kellum came back on Sunday. The wind had shifted early that morning, too still, too quiet, and even the birds kept their distance. I'd saddled the mule, checked the rifle twice, and sat sharpening a blade just to keep my hand from shaking. Josie and June moved through the house with the solemn efficiency of grown women, not girls, as if they knew this was the day everything tilted. He arrived with a deputy. Not Boone, of course. Boone wouldn't come. He was too proud or too careful. The one who did ride and looked young, nervous, rode behind Kellum like a man following orders he didn't agree with. They dismounted at the edge of my yard, boots crunching slow over gravel. Kellum carried that same smirk, polished like a poker chip. He held out a folded document like it was gospel. Guardianship order, signed and notarized. This time, you'll hand him over. I stepped off the porch, shotgun cradled in my arms, not raised, not aimed, but not idle either. I've seen enough signatures forged in this town to know paper don't mean truth. The deputy cleared his throat. Sir, if you resist, we're authorized to use force. Force against who? I asked. A couple of scared girls and an old man with a bum knee. His eyes flicked to the shotgun. I didn't blink. You want to shoot out in front of a house with children inside? I asked him, you want to explain that to your mama, your preacher, or anyone with a heart still working? The deputy looked away. Kellum, though, stepped forward, voice too smooth. Don't be stupid, Rawlins. They're not yours. No, I said, but I reckon they're not yours either. That's when the door creaked open behind me. Josie stepped out, June just behind her, both standing straighter than I'd ever seen. Josie held the old locket in one hand, trembling but proud. This was Mama's, she said to Kellum. Not yours. You never loved her. You just wanted what she had. You little brat, Kellum snarled. I took one step forward. That's enough. But it was Josie who silenced him. My mama died to protect us, she said. She said Buck Rawlins would keep us safe. And he has. June lifted her chin. He's more our kin than you'll ever be. The deputy looked between us all, swallowing hard. Let me see that order again, he said to Kellum. Kellum hesitated. Now, the deputy said, firmer this time. Kellum handed it over jaw tight. The deputy read it slowly, brow furrowing. Then he looked up. This paper ain't valid. Not in this county, not with no court stamp. Where'd you get it? Kellum reached for his belt. Too fast. My shotgun was up before I thought. One booming shot rang out, tearing through the dust at his feet. He stumbled back, swearing, weapon half drawn, eyes wide. Next one won't miss, I said. Try me. The deputy drew then, on Kellum. Drop it, he said. Kellum froze. I said drop it. Kellum let the gun fall, lips curled in fury. You're under arrest for presenting forged legal documents and threatening minors, the deputy said, stepping forward. Get on your knees. Josie grabbed my arm. June buried her face against my side. My heart was a runaway colt in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. It's over. Kellum spat in the dirt, but went down. The deputy cuffed him quick, hauled him to his feet. I'll take it back to town. Boone will want a word. He met my eyes, and I nodded once. No thanks passed between us. Just something quieter, respect maybe, or understanding. When they rode off, the girls and I stood watching the dust settle, not quite breathing. You said it might end bad, Josie whispered. I figured it might, but it didn't. No, I said, not today. That night we lit the oil lamp in the front window, like Clara used to. I found a music box she'd kept tucked in the drawer and wound it gently. The melody was off-key now, but sweet in its crooked way. Josie danced with June on the rug, laughing the kind of laugh I hadn't heard since they arrived. I sat back, watching them spin. Family don't always come by blood. Sometimes it finds you in the middle of your worst season and gives you a reason to keep going. They weren't mine by name, but they were mine by promise. And I aim to keep that.